Hello and welcome to this Jane's Weather Update. It is Friday, the 2nd of May. As usual, there's a lot going on, so let's get into it. Okay, so here we have our map of Australia. It's our satellite moving through, our radar as well. This is all new technology coming from Jane's Weather. Today we have got onshore winds that are coming into the east coast, so the showers all up through there and into these parts of Queensland as well. Go over the other side of the country. There are cold fronts that are passing through that are going to deliver a little bit of weather in the southeast. It was a crisp night, so a chilly one. There's high pressure overhead and that is slowly moving out to the east. So let's just take a bit of a zoom in here so we can see what is happening in the, say, Sydney area. So all of these eastern parts of the country. There is the radar and satellite as it went through the morning, including how much rain has fallen into the gauge to the 9 a.m. reset. So a bit of an idea of what's happening there. Let's have a look at our maps day by day. So this is Friday, 10 p.m. So it's at 24 hours up until then. There's the high pressure system that is sitting over the southeast of the country. High pressure there, winds travel anti-clockwise around one of those. So that means we've got onshore winds for New South Wales and Queensland. And that's going to continue for the next couple of days. So yes, that means more showers coming into the coast. Flip around to the other side of the country and then we have cold fronts coming in with the rainfall associated with that one. So that's for today. Here we have into Saturday. So that's crossing the southwest, all dry in the southeast, another chilly start to the day. We've got the high just moving offshore. So that means we're going to lose the chilly nights in the southeast once that moves out to the east, but we're going to continue with that onshore airflow. So the northern parts of the New South Wales coast plus Queensland are going to get that rainfall. Having a look at Queensland as we move into Sunday, some of that comes a little bit further inland, but again, mainly a coastal thing. The system has moved across the southwest. Now there's just a little bit that is left in through there in the southeast, high out to the east. Let's watch Monday. We watch that system approach the southeast. The high is too strong, so it just slides away and we don't see a lot from that particular one. The one in behind it is lining up, still onshore flow for Queensland and that part of New South Wales. So moving into Tuesday, there is the next one that is starting to come across the bight. This one has better trajectory to come into the southeast, but watch what it does once it gets there. We don't have any connection to tropical moisture at the moment, so this will mainly be a coastal thing as it comes through. So here is that change on Wednesday. I'll just zoom into the southeast there so you can see just how much is not coming with this system. We've got this in the western parts of Tasmania. It dries out as it moves to the east. We've got this moving into these parts of South Australia, the southern part of Victoria, and again, as it moves across inland and across the ranges, it dries out as it does because there's no connection to tropical moisture. That one is then going to move on. So we'll move here to Thursday. We'll zoom back out. There's the next high pressure system that's sitting in there. I've zoomed way too far out. Let's just head back in there. We have got high, very broad in through here. Nothing hitting the southwest. Still a bit of action for the Queensland coast in through there. And then that high moves out to the east again. So there's not much happening in the next week. There is one system that is building there. As we look through, this is Friday the 9th. Saturday the 10th, and then Sunday the 11th. So more than a week away, there might be something bigger brewing over the bight, something to keep an eye on, but at this stage, there would be low confidence in that. Let's have a look at the rainfall totals as we move through that period of time. So this is Friday through the end of next Friday. That's what it's going to add up to on the coast there of Queensland, so 25 to 50 for some parts. But you can see how it very drastically reduces as it moves inland in through there. In the southwest, that is a 10, 15, maybe 25 millimetres right in that southwest corner. This one doesn't have the strength either, so it doesn't extend very far inland, not like the recent ones we've seen in through there. And in the southeast, that's 1 to 5 millimetres as it comes in, and hardly anything less than a millimetre if you are inland. And let's just bring Tasmania into that a little bit there. On that western coast, sitting in drought now, a nice 25 to 50 might be handy there, maybe even a little bit more, but again, it's not a strong system for them. All right, let's have a look week by week. So this is from the Euro model. This is for the week 1, which is starting on Monday, the 5th of May. And you can notice a lot of dry tones that are in this map here, just in that southwestern corner of Tasmania. Otherwise, it is looking fairly dry unless you're right up the top. The corresponding temperature to go with that is all looking very, very warm. Again, not right in the far north, but for the majority of the country, it is looking warmer than average. Let's just give a number there, because I know this one. Melbourne, 17 is the maximum temperature, as in the average maximum temperature for May. We're looking at being 25, 26 in the early part of next week. So that kind of gives you an idea of just how how much warmer than average this is. Why? Because the high is sitting out over the Tasman Sea, letting all of the northerly winds bring the heat down into the southeast. All right, that is week 1. Let's have a look at week 2. It's looking a little bit better in terms of green, but it's really not making it down to the south. So still we've got all of these brown tones in through here. This is starting on Monday, the 12th of May, and going the week ahead there. We've got some green tones on the east coast, so onshore winds, a system that is sitting there, maybe something trying to come down across the centre there, but possibly not making it down right into the southeast. So you might see clouds developing over the interior, producing a little bit of rain, but it doesn't make it right down to the south. That is the precipitation profile. Here is the heat that comes with that, and still we're looking above average for this second week as we move into the 12th of May. Let's have a look at the season as a whole. So let's go back up here. We'll just bring this this is May to July. Let's bring this one here. Here we go. So here is May. This is what we're looking at for the country as a whole. There's not a lot of tropical activity. There's not a lot of cold front activity. There's not a lot of trough activity. So any of that low pressure, there just isn't a lot of oomph with that. It's mainly high pressure. It's mainly sitting out to the east, and so that blocks rain for a lot of the country. The coast may do okay, but the majority is looking drier than average. This is for May as a whole, and it is the most recent data coming out on the 1st. So this came out on yesterday. Having a look at the next one here, May through to July. So this one still has a fair bit of brown tones on it. It's starting to remove them in through here, but still brown in through the southwest. Trust me, it's behind there. And so we've got all of these brown tones here. That is May through to July. Let's now go to the next one here. This is June through to August. So it looks like later on in the period, we're likely to get a bit more wet weather coming in, but it may be a very slow start as we move through May, potentially through June, and also through July as well. So this tells us there's not a lot of wet weather that is coming, but on the horizon later in the season, there may be. So let's investigate why that is. Sea surface temperature anomaly. We usually look at the boxes that are out in the Pacific and also in the Indian Ocean there. Let's start with the Pacific Ocean. This was filled with blues, and it was offset with these warm oranges off the coast of Queensland. The blues are rapidly now disappearing. So it did a bit of a stall in the Pacific Ocean. Now they are disappearing. It's like it's got its skates back on once again. We haven't started to see a lot of blue reappearing here off the coast of Queensland. However, you will see this one in through here, this part in here. That is the sign of perhaps it actually flicking over. If we end up with all yellows in through here and all blues off here, then that is a proper El Nino, and that stops the rainfall coming down into Queensland and in from the Pacific Ocean. That is if we end up with big bright yellows in through here, perhaps some of these colours too, and we lose all of this and it turns actually blue. Now, the last time that we had an El Nino, we know that all of this off the coast of Queensland didn't go into the opposite one. It didn't end up with those cool blues off there. So it wasn't the usual effects, the usual drying effects, because we had our own source of moisture. These parts in through here is definitely something to keep an eye on, because if that goes properly yellow and this one disappears from those yellows and actually goes blue, then we do have a problem on our hands. Let's have a look at the other side here. We've got yellows all in this box. Off the coast of Indonesia, we have yellows at the moment, so there's no strong dipole in either direction. We've also got all of these warm tones that are off the coast here on the northwest. Now, let's head back to the Pacific for a second. Here is where we were in our weak La Nina as we went through the summer. That has come out. This is when it had its skates on, and then it stopped for a little while, but now it has got its skates back on once again. And the forecast is showing that it is heading in this direction. So that tells us that the Pacific Ocean is likely to turn off the tap. Now, it only properly turns off the tap, as in stops it, if all of those colours off the coast there end up turning blue. So that is the thing to keep an eye on. Again, if we have all of these ones in through here, that's another source of moisture. But that's essentially what we've got to deal with in terms of what is happening to our east. Over on the western side, let's have a look at that one here, the Indian Ocean dipole. Over summer, it doesn't make any sense. As we come into autumn, it does make a lot of sense. And it's currently sitting here just on that drier side of neutral. The forecasts are showing that it is likely heading to this direction and may actually just scrape that threshold of a negative Indian Ocean dipole as we go through the very end of the season. So it's taking its time, but it may actually get here. And what that means is a big push of moisture coming in from the northwest, those juicy northwest cloud bands. But what this tells us is it's not anytime soon, it's later on in the period. And that is exactly what these guys are saying. We're looking dry, that is for May. For May through to July, still fairly dry. It doesn't turn until later on that we start to see any of that better wet weather coming down from the northwest. One of the other main factors which is going to have a big impact this year is this one, the southern annular mode known as SAM. This is something to keep an eye on. Now, the forecasts don't go out very far, but what we have seen is that this is looking very positive. What it means is troughs and lows are more likely rather than strong cold fronts. If you're in those drought areas of southern South Australia, western parts of Victoria, western parts of Gippsland, also the majority of Tasmania, you need those strong cold fronts to come up to be able to deliver that wet weather. That's the bread and butter for these areas. We have the autumn break, and then every couple of days, a cold front moves through. If we don't have this signal down in that southern part there, we don't see them. Sometimes we can get that signal to go right down, and that means that strong cold fronts are able to come up. They're not necessarily going to hit the southeast of the country. They may hit the southwest instead. And that's what happened with the last one in through there. So what this is telling us is earlier on last year, it went positive and it remained positive for much of last year. So we struggled to get those cold fronts come up. Across summer, it has remained fairly positive and it's fairly positive now. You're going to get the occasional bit where it goes down, but this is telling us that positive is the most likely signal that this one's going to have. If it is positive, then the cold fronts will really struggle to come up. What we're looking at here, I think, overall is the Pacific Ocean isn't going to help us out. The Indian Ocean isn't going to help us out for now, at least the start of the growing season. But later on, as we go through the later part of winter and into spring, that's when we might start to see some relief, some rain coming down from there. But again, you've got to have these cold fronts if you want that to make it all the way through to the coast. Or we could be lucky and there is a trough that sits there or a lovely cut-off low. Hopefully one of those is in our future and it wanders through and anyone in its path gets that slow, steady, soaking rain. But at the moment, we don't have any of those in the outlook. I'll catch you next week. Bye.